Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hi, all, and welcome. Are you really ready for an enthralling and interesting hour related to leadership and soft skills related to project success? You are? That's too bad. Anyway, we're going to try to make it fun and hopefully very interesting to you also. You know, what I did over the years was I analyzed a number of different methodologies, certifications, and techniques. The ones I'd like to mention to you here, or anybody know what that is? PMI Talent Triangle. How about that one? That look familiar to anybody in the room? The BABOK from the IIBA. Waterfall, or actually what's really interesting is the combination of waterfall and agile is WAGILE, if you haven't seen it, which is actually what most people are doing. I'm getting some nods. Next is ITIL, and then lastly, as I began to mention, was agile. So what we did was we analyzed all of these, not from the technical skills that they require, but from the leadership, the business skills, things like negotiation and influence, et cetera, and interpersonal communication perspective, with the specific idea of what could we learn from it. Now, upon doing this analysis, the first thing that we learned is that it was really hard and a little bit boring. But what else we learned, which I think that you'll find of value, is this shown here. And I don't think there's any surprise in what you'll read here, but is that technical training and certifications are a great and will always be a great mechanism for companies to move toward new technologies, and within, for the people working within the company to upskill or up-level their skills, which basically means learn more stuff. But when we analyzed it more deeply and from the perspective that I mentioned, what we also learned when we really thought about it was this, is that when you enhance your hard skills, and the key words here are job-specific soft skills, is that it magnified their value not only to the organizations that have given you this training, maybe paid for your certifications, maybe paid for you to be here today, but also for you as the employee, for your professional growth and building your professional brand. So what I'm going to be talking to you about in the next, hour, 15 minutes or so is specifically related to this right-hand side. Now, as we go in and we look at these different skills, every one of these skills could be given a different name. That name would be what Eric Bloom should have known in his 20s, 30s, and 40s that would have saved him a lot of time and aggravation. I started my career as a techie. I programmed in everything from assembly language to COBOL to .NET to Java. Pick a technology and put together any 3 or 4 initials. If there was a technology related to it, I either knew it or wanted to know it. And I totally discounted this whole idea of active listening. Even as a director, director of database management, if I had the choice of taking Oracle database internals or active listening, even when I wasn't doing it anymore, I totally discounted this soft skills stuff because by education, what was I told coming out of school? That the way you succeed is you enhance your technical skills in your given area. So you become the subject matter expert, and for me, was everything that I could learn about programming. And then what you do is you widen it for technologies that connect to yours. So therefore, things like soft skills, or particularly active listening. Why should I take a class in active listening? I've been listening to people my whole life. Where's the Oracle class? And you know which one I should have taken? I should have taken these soft skills classes. That's why I'm so passionate about teaching it, because it was later in my career when I was, just sort of forced to start learning this stuff. It was like, wow. Because what these soft skills provide you is, like influence. We all know how to influence people. We all do it all the time. An influence technique, actually, it's called push influence. I did it as a 2-year-old, which my mother will attest to. Mommy, I want a cookie. Mommy, I want a cookie. Mommy, I want a cookie. Right? What is that? That's repetitive request. It's a push type of influence. Now, I didn't know it at the time. But the thing is that, so why would I study this stuff? Why, more importantly, why should you study this stuff? The reason is we do soft skills by default, by gut feel. You know, when we're negotiating, when we're influencing, when we're trying to solve conflicts. But if you put technique and you put process to it, then those techniques and processes, after we do it, can be analyzed and we can enhance our craft at performing these different tasks. So that's why I want you to open your mind to really looking at these type skills. We're going to talk about some general ones, you know, as I've analyzed, you know, all those things shown on the previous slide here. And then we're going to talk about a couple of them specifically. I'm guessing you can guess which couple we're going to talk about specifically. But now, as far as taking notes, you'll all find on your tables, if I can steal maybe one from you for a moment, thank you, is one of these. Now, there's two important things about this sheet. One of which is what I'm going to go through in the next set of slides are all on here. So don't worry about feverishly writing notes in order to do that. And we'll come back and we'll talk about this as an exercise as we move forward. But also in the top left on what's the front page, the one that starts with interpersonal communication, in the top left in that little corner that you always leave empty when you do this stuff, is that what I'd like to thank you for all being here is as part of our institute, what we have is we have a full body of knowledge there related to, among other things, all these other topics. Is a thank you for being here today. We're giving you the access to the paid professional version of it for a year to our community. So if you just follow these lessons here, remember to put in the keyword New York, and there's no space between the new and the York. And you know, you're welcome to sign up. This will be open for you for, I think it's till a week from Friday to give you time to get back home and do it. But I'm not selling you anything. It's all free. So if it's of value to you, you're more than welcome to join the community. But anyway, so back to this. The first of the areas that I want to look at, that I want us to discuss, is interpersonal communication. Now, when you think of interpersonal communication, that's me talking to you, it's listening, we'll see exactly what it is in a minute. Obviously, the reason that they teach this at companies, and the reason that you're here, and you know, Amy and others wanted me to speak about this, and which, by the way, also was mentioned by our keynoters this morning. Weren't they awesome, by the way? They were awesome. I could watch them all the time. Now, so we know that these skills are good for people at the office, but you know what? They're also great for people at home. The reason is at the end of the day, people are people. Is that if I'm trying to negotiate with you something in the office, well, then when I want to negotiate with you, say you're my Verizon, my cell phone carrier, or at a yard sale, and I really think this chair's only worth $4 and not $10. It's the same negotiation techniques. Because if the people from the hotel were here, they'd be cringing because these are probably $40 chairs, but we don't need to go there. But anyway, is that all of these same techniques, we ever have conflict on our projects? Well, the same techniques that will solve conflict in the office will solve conflict between you and a family member, you and your kids, between your kids when they're arguing. It's all the same stuff. So learning this is a twofer in addition to everything else. So anyway, let's look at the first set of interpersonal communication. Body language and emotional intelligence. Anyone study emotional intelligence? Okay, some have, many haven't. That's your first homework assignment. I promise you I won't be collecting it, but write it down or on the sheet, put an X next to that one actually, and body language of things that you should follow up on. Emotional intelligence is the basis for many different, in fact, I would say all different types of interpersonal connection. Basically, it's if you know yourself, then you can manage yourself. And if you understand and have empathy for others and you have organizational awareness, then it is easier for you to influence others, to do all of those other things in working with other people. Body language, I mean, imagine if I came up here and said, yeah, hi, I'd like to talk to you about being assertive. All right, why is everybody laughing? Is my body language assertive? No. So you can use body language both proactively, like if I walk out there like this, you're going to think one thing of me than if I walk out there like this, but also to watch other people. Someone standing there like this, or sitting there with their arms crossed. What does that mean? Putting up a barrier. It might mean they're cold. Or it might mean they're just really comfortable sitting or standing like this. So understand you can observe, but you can't always make decisions or related to how they are. It's a deeper art in addition to being science. But anyway, if you do these, what do they provide you? They provide you an understanding of others. And if you have a deeper understanding of others, what does that let you do? Build relationships and influence them. Do you know what sales, conflict resolution, delegation, difficult conversations, influence, negotiation, and all other types of interpersonal stuff is the official technical term? Do you know what they all have in common? They all work better if you have a trusted, now by I say personal, I mean like business type, trusted relationship. These help you get that. Excuse me, next. Asking questions, good questions, and active listening. What do these do? Help you with fact finding? Business analysts out here, do you ever need to ask people questions and listen to their answers? Techniques of these will be great. Now let me tell you a very funny quick story on this. We teach the active listening topology. Have you ever studied that? It's repeating, rephrasing, and reflecting. So let's say that I call Verizon, and I say, hi, I'm having trouble with my cell phone. Not picking on Verizon just because I like them, they're my phone carrier. But and I say, hi, I'm having trouble with my cell phone. What do they say back to me? I understand you're having trouble with your cell phone. So what do I say to them? I'm glad you understand that I'm having trouble with my cell phone. Why? So I can get them to say, I'm glad that you're glad that I understand you're having difficulty. So usually that totally throws them off script. But I just say, I teach this stuff. Let's just move forward on it, make it fun. But anyway, is that type of active listening is hard to learn. I'm going to give you a real quick one. Listen with your ears, your eyes, and your heart. Listening with your ears, you have to listen to the words, but what else do you have to listen to? Well, that's your eyes. That's listening with your eyes, as is social cues. So if everyone in here was falling asleep, then I would probably talk a little faster, right? But also, what happens if someone gets up and they start talking really fast and their voice goes up a little bit? What does that mean? They're nervous. Or if someone calls you up, if you're in a tech support role and is talking really quickly with urgency, what does that mean? Exactly. They want to get this done. They're nervous. They need to get this solved. So and listening with your heart is empathy, which ties back to emotional intelligence. So this is how all these things connect. I try to spend more time sort of on this slide than on some others that will be coming up in a bit, just to give you an idea, because this is really the foundation. The next one, difficult conversations and conflict resolution. Reduces stress. Well, there's no stress ever in project management, is there? No. So I guess we could skip this one. But these techniques, someone looked like, really? No, I was just kidding. But these techniques, what do? Is if you can reduce the conflict, don't you want people to spend more time, more of their creative thought on improving the project rather than me strategizing how to protect myself from you in this project? There's so many brain cycles that can go through. Reduce conflict increases productivity. And then the next, public speaking and the things shown here, facilitation, written communication, etc. What that does is that gives you visibility. It gives you influence toward upward mobility. Why? Anyone who gave a presentation recently? Anybody? Okay, who was it to? People you didn't care about? Who had nothing to do with your project and whatnot? Who was it? Potential customers. Does she want to do a good job with those customers? Absolutely. Or you ever present a project to senior management and your senior stakeholders? Everyone in that room has an influence on your future promotion and growth at the company. So for the few times you're in front of them, don't you want to do it well? That's what public speaking, your ability to facilitate a room, etc., does for you. Because people are always making judgments on you. Just like when you came in, 15 seconds in, you're thinking, oh God, it's toward the end of the day. Is this guy going to drive me crazy and be really boring? Or am I going to be able to talk in a monotone voice for an hour and 15 minutes until everybody gets up and starts running for the doors? We're all like a bottle of wine. Our resumes are the label. But then, if you have a really cool, anyone ever buy wine because it had a really cool label? If I have too, and if you drink it and it tastes somewhat like a derivation of gasoline, do you ever buy it again? No, because you're continually evaluating. Now let's move to our next, area, which is leadership characteristics. This is of enormous importance. Now, it's funny, I'm going to open this one up and just show you the list. Do we have any Boy Scouts, people who were Boy Scouts as kids? Okay, help me with this one. A Scout is trustworthy. Anyone remember it? I'll help you. Loyal, helpful, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Whenever I see this list, I sort of think of that. One of these days I'm going to change this list to that and just see if any old Boy Scouts in the room notice. But what does this do, this list of characteristics? If you look at it at a high level, what it really does is that the first set is your professional brand and integrity. The second set is your reputation as a change agent, influencing, having motivation, vision for others, being proactive, being opportunistic as things change. Now let me turn back to the first one for a minute. Who do you like to work with? People that you trust? People that you like? People that you think are honest? Or people who, let me just say, don't fall into those categories? I have great difficulty having people work for me who I don't trust. Why? I'm continually having to check their work. It just bothers me because a couple of times earlier in my career is that I had someone working for me just like on a couple of occasions where they told me one thing and it wasn't, it was something else, and it really embarrassed me with senior management. I didn't lose my job over it or anything. It just sort of really felt ugly. From those lessons, early in your career, in your 20s, you're sort of, you're very open to suggestion from a business perspective. You're still learning your craft. One thing I kept from those days is, for me, it isn't trust but verify, it's trust, and it better be right, or you won't work for me long. It's a quirk of mine, other people are different, but that's why this top one is so important to me. And I'm going to tell you where it's important to all of you. There's a quote that I really like. Your professional friends come and go. What that means is, let's say, for example, you and I, we work together in the same company for a couple of years, and then you take a job there, I get transferred to another department. 5 years go by, we don't really talk to each other, but then all of a sudden, just serendipitously, we end up working in the same project. It's, hey, cool, how you been? That kind of thing. Has that ever happened to anybody? So your professional friends come and go, but your enemies accumulate. But it's true? Okay. So what happens is this. Let's say that I don't meet those top criteria and I'm sort of a schmo, and that you and I were working together for a couple of years, and it just wasn't those things, and I left a really bad taste in your mouth and so on. You've gotten promoted a couple of times. My resume passes your desk. You're now head of the PMO, the project management office in a big company, and someone looks at my resume and says, wow, that EricBloom guy, he looks pretty good. And you look at it, oh no, keep away, the guy's trouble. Which file does my resume end up in? The round one. right? The trash. So I would have lost a great opportunity that I didn't even know was there for the having. Why? Because I didn't follow these leadership and just really personal type rules. Making sense to folks? Am I going too fast, too slow? Too loud, too soft? Was the chicken at lunch too hot, too cold? But then the bottom one here, commitment to getting the job done. Flexibility. Anyone need flexibility in their roles? Which, by the way, comes with being opportunistic. The next is determination. You know, one of the best ways to influence people to do something is to be so committed to it yourself, you know, having determination and accountability for it, that other people will really feel guilty if they don't. You want people to work hard on your project? Then you work hard on your project. Now let's move to analytical and thinking skills. I'll just hold it. Isn't that a cool picture? Now, let's start with some general brainstorming. You know, everyone says, oh, brainstorming. Yeah, we all do brainstorming. Do you know that there's lots of different kinds of brainstorming? Sort of story for another day kind of thing. But you really should look into all the different ways that it can be done. What I will tell you, though, is when it comes to brainstorming, actually creative thinking or strategic thinking, I'm big on diversity. Now, when most people think of diversity in the US, they think of ethnicity and gender. They call that big D diversity. While I think those are really, really important, equally as important to me from this perspective is someone who has a degree in computer science and someone who has a degree in liberal arts. Someone who's been with the company for 20 years and someone who was just hired 3 weeks ago. You know, someone who's a baby boomer and someone who's a Gen Xer. That never used to be as funny as it is now. But anyway, you get the idea. Why? Because everyone comes to things from a different perspective. What I will say to you for the BAs, but the PMs also, is if you're designing what a system is going to look like, the people on your team should mimic in age and type and gender and all the other things we talked about, the constituency of the people that are going to be using whatever it is that you're developing. Why? Because they'll look at it from those perspectives. You get a bunch of people in their 20s coming up with a website. No one's going to say, wow, we better make the letters bigger so that the people of my age can see it a little easier. Or they'll say, oh, well, let's just do an app. All right, my mother's 86. Do you know what she thinks an app is? It's short for napkin. So if she's your constituency, unless you have people of her age in it, then it's not going to work. So these together is you theorize what can be done. The next set, root cause analysis, problem solving, decision making, of which there are also multiple skills and techniques and things beyond this. You know, 5 whys, some of the general ones you know, but much deeper and just really cooler stuff. What they do is they help you define what must be done, but almost more importantly here is how to do it. And then the next one only has one word in it, but it's really a very big word. Innovation. Now, what does innovation mean? What does that do for you? It facilitates the design and creation. By the way, this is a definition almost for something else, and I'm going to test you to see what it is. But it's the design and creation of new products, technologies, processes, revenue streams, and whole new markets. Anyone know what that's more or less a definition for? Digital transformation. Also entrepreneurship, actually. Yes, absolutely. Because that's what they look for. In companies, particularly established companies, it's digital transformation. How many people have heard of digital transformation? Okay, all of you who put up your hand, just hold it up for a minute longer. Everyone who doesn't have their hand up, look around the room because those are the people who are going to be promoted next. And I say that wholeheartedly. you know, what's really interesting, what's been nice is I speak to BAs and PMs a number of times, as well as, you know, IT tech leads and others, you know, of this ilk. And, you know, at the C-suite, digital transformation, I don't mean just the techie part of the C-suite, I mean everybody. Digital transformation is like the hottest thing for like 2 or 3 years now, continuing to gain in momentum. But as much as just 6 months ago, as I'd ask that question, 10% of the hands would go up, which is really interesting because who are the ones running the projects and gaining the requirements for the digital transformation related initiatives? It's just that the terminology and the concept didn't work its way down. Now I'm going to give you a specific example of this. All right, business analysts, any of you guys ever collect requirements? Right? Obviously. So what do? You go to the business people, roughly. You interview them. You'll use different techniques. You know, you'll try storytelling, or you'll develop use cases, or you'll just ask them, or you might observe them doing it and try to come up with the requirements are. With digital transformation, what the business analysts end up doing is they're moving it up a level. Is they're doing the creative thinking and the strategic thinking. They're not going there to collect requirements to see what should be done. They're going there thinking about the art of the possible, what can be done. So as business analysts, to basically move to be, you know, to have a seat at the strategic table, you don't want to go and ask them what they want. You want to go there and help them figure out what's next. Let me ask you a question. Do you think every grocery store in the country started to look over its shoulder when Amazon bought Whole Foods? Yeah. Do you think that every industry that basically from airlines to everyone that has people call in to then go do things started looking over their shoulder when Uber came in? Those disruptive technologies basically enhance productivity, but every industry is looking for things like that. I'm going to tell you a quick story, and this is one that you can use to, as not the exact story, but as a basis for how you can think about things when you go back to your companies. I was working with a company that what they did was they were a big online retailer. Now, you know, they weren't Amazon, but they just had millions of names. I just want to, because everybody says, oh, it must have been them. It wasn't them. And what they did as a security feature was when you created an account, they captured the machine that you were on, you know, the CPU ID, and your IP address, you know, the physical location of the machine where you logged in. Why? Because let's say that I logged into this company, created my account. If 3 weeks later I log into that account to buy something, and they see that I'm on the same machine where the account was created, is it probably me? How about if it's in a machine they don't know in Belarus? Is it me? Maybe, but most likely not. How about if it's my machine in Belarus? Higher probability that I went there on business and took my laptop with me. So they have this huge file, millions of names, tying email addresses to physical locations and such. Now, they said, wow, isn't that a great security scheme? You know, one of many, but it's pretty good. So guess what they did? They sold it as a product. They created a cloud-based product. Now, they didn't give their list away, but they went to, say, retailer 2 and said, we'll set up a service for you, and what this service will do is you send us an email address, a machine address, and an IP address, and we'll tell you if they're on our system. Now, and if it is on the system, you know, one of the three, we'll send like different codes of what's the level of confidence. So they're not giving away the list. For them to have, you know, if another company to be able to get my stuff would already have to have my email, you know, my IP address, etc. And they made millions on this product. From a business perspective, from the company that sells this product, this cloud-based product to other retailers, what's the cost of the development and ongoing maintenance of that system to the company? Zero. Why? They developed it for themselves, 100% correct, and they have to do it anyway. So all they had to do was basically productize it and market it. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't everybody like to have a software company that all you had to do was market it and you didn't have to have a product? Think of all the money you could make. That's what they did. Now I'm going to charge all of you with this. What exists in your companies that's data, that's software, that's process, that your company could sell as another product and maybe put you in charge of it? Wouldn't that be cool? That's what the innovation part of this does, beyond even the internal digital transformation. Now let's talk about business skills. I'll pause here because isn't that a cool picture? How long do you think the photographer had to sit there with this in its mouth till they got a really cute one of the dog? Anyway, is business skills, team buildings, running meetings, building diversity, vendor management. Sound familiar? All of these help you build and maintain your team. And what do happy, well-built teams make? Successful projects. Let's move to the next. Negotiation skills, a consultative approach to the way you deal with your business partners. Strategic planning, goals, time management. All of these skills are of enormous value to you. Why? I don't know why. Let's see. There you go. I hit the button on the back. See, I'm a software person. That's a hardware issue. But anyway, what does it do? It maximizes your productivity and effectiveness. And also, some of these, like negotiation, isn't that a great skill, again, to use everywhere else? I'm going to give you a quick example of this. I was teaching a negotiation class, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And, just being the good instructor, I went around and I asked everybody, how do you negotiate at work? Reasonable question. So therefore I can use examples that are in context, etc. I said to the first person, I said, how do you negotiate at work? She said to me, well, actually, I'm a project manager, and I am continually negotiating scope creep, additional features, delivery date, things along that line. I said, great, and how about the next person? How do you negotiate at work? What he said to me is he said he was in vendor management and was worrying about SLAs, service level agreements, price, etc. I said to the third person, who'd be a good third person? You'd be a good third person. I said, well, how do you negotiate at work? Do you know what he said to me? I don't negotiate at all at work. I said, really? I said, so why are you taking today's class? He says, I'm buying a car in a couple of weeks and figured you could save me a few bucks. I laughed, as did everybody, but driving home that night, what I really thought of was I said, wow, what a great example that is of how soft skills learned for strong business purpose are transferable as a life skill when you move into the home front. And then lastly here, mentoring, interviewing, staff reviews, things along that line. What those skills do is they enhance your ability to work on one-on-one relationships with others. Maybe you're having to interview people to be on your project if it's dotted line-based, consultants, etc. One of the most important things you can do, and I'll speak to the project managers and others who lead teams, is one of the best and most important things you can do is hire good people. Is that there's an old saying that you've hired well, is if when you have your own staff meeting and your staff is sitting around the room, if you're the dumbest one in the room, you did a good job hiring. Next, management tasks. Delegation. Anyone know how to delegate? Delegation is a very hard thing. Harder for some people than others. I'm an only kid. I didn't have little brothers and sisters. to push around and to tell to do things. So delegation didn't come natural to me, as it does to other people. Or, or if anyone is, leader of a sports team. If you're a quarterback of your team because you're of your football team because you're a good athlete from the time you were 7, then delegation is pretty easy because you're used to that, saying, you go long, you do this, I'll hand the ball off to you, go that way. Unfortunately, I joke with my father that when it comes to my athletic prowess, I'm from the shallow end of the gene pool. So I didn't learn from that either. But these skills, what do? They help you build your management team. It builds your skills in this area. Now, risk reduction, stress reduction, etc., what these do, these are important management tasks, is they help you deal with your staff, your user, and your stakeholders. See how all of these things tie back to real stuff. Next, your business knowledge. I got to stop at this slide for a moment, just because that's not, well, that couldn't be him yet. But I just heard about a month and a half ago that I'm going to be a grandfather again, and my daughter's having a little boy. Thank you. Puts all this stuff in perspective, I'll tell you. But I'm never going to get him a bow tie or glasses like that, just so you know. But anyway, is your business knowledge. Remember we were talking about digital transformation? In order to know what to transform, you have to understand the business models, competitive analysis. Anybody working in, say, ERP systems? All right, Oracle or ASP? Oracle, I'll say, but this will go the other way also. So you know what you should do if you're, certainly you should know as much as possible about the Oracle suite of projects related to ERP. But you know what you should also analyze and go to one of their group meetings for? For SaaS. You say, well, why? Because they might just have a couple of really cool features that you could bring back as implementation ideas to develop custom on your site. You know when you're really, really good at something, you're a subject matter expert? Well, when you get broadened knowledge, like you had said SAP, then if you learn Oracle or whatever it is, you're in financial services, and then you learn retail and see what's going on in all these other places. You have horizontal knowledge. Do you know what that makes you? A thought leader. What did you say? Oh, what? T-shape? Oh, yes. Right, you are T-shaped. Oh, I thought it was a joke, but you're right, it is a T. It's this way and that way. But horizontal knowledge brings thought leadership. Next, legal, regulatory. Anybody in a regulated industry? Yeah. Oh, I got to know, my God, financial services? Close enough. But what do these do? This helps you maximize your project value. Why? Because if you know where they're going, if you understand what the business is doing and what they're going through, ties back to emotional intelligence, first thing we talked about. Then if you can put yourselves in their shoes, understand their compliance and regulations and operational issues, it's easier for you to get their requirements in a traditional BA role, to help them figure out what their requirements are in a digital transformative type role, etc. Now, what I'd like to do is if you'll go back to your sheets here, is you'll see that the things that we went through are on the two sides of this paper. I'd like to give you about 2 minutes to look through this list and just click on those items. I'll tell you how the whole thing works, but so you can do it at your leisure, like over a glass of wine. If you do it over a glass of wine, do it off the first glass, not the 5th glass, or your answers will be very different. But what you'll see is these are different roles of yours. They're individual contributor, project manager, BA, scrum master, etc., product owner, as well as you. And for now, just pick the 1 or 2 that are most important to you in here. And then what you do is says, what's your current ability? A 1 to a 5. I'm really good at this. I'm really bad at that kind of thing. 5 being great, 1 being, well, not so great. The next one where it says your priority to learn it. A 5 is, wow, I really need to learn more about influence because I'm a PM. A 1 is, not so much. And then if you do this for this whole sheet on both sides, What it does, it not only will give you a good understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses, but it'll also provide you a roadmap on the things that you need to enhance your own skills over time. But what I'll do, I'll give you 2 minutes to look through and just check a couple of these that really resonate with you personally. Okay, what are some of the things that people pick? Just sort of your one top one. Anyone want to share it? Decision making. Great. In fact, you know that not making a decision is a decision made by default. How about another? I'm sorry? Goal setting. Now, let me ask you a question on that one regarding goal setting. Anyone ever make do a project plan? Of course. Now, after you do that project plan, have you ever looked back at it and see, the deliverables being delivered when you thought they would, and this thing is 50% done when you thought it would be, and are you on track? Anybody ever do that? Now let me ask you another question. Have you ever set personal goals and done your own project plan? You do them for other people all the time. Have you ever done a project plan for yourself of where you would like to be in 5 years? And then tracked that on an ongoing basis? I'm getting some yeses. That's awesome. A lot of people never did. I didn't. I got lucky. But I've also used an influence technique on you. The mere fact that he had said decision making, that's an influence technique by Cialdini. It's one of his 6 types, called consistency. The mere fact that he wrote it down, or whichever one you've checked off, and then he told everybody in here that he's going to learn more about decision making, it's more likely that he will. Now, what was this again? We saw this, right? Okay, let me ask you a question. The blue one, what goes there? Oops, oh, PMI triangle. Technical project management. How about the purple one on the bottom? Ooh! Leadership to the right, strategic and business management on the bottom. It didn't matter, you knew what they all were. But let's think about this, tying it back to soft skills. Everything in the world that you have to know about running a project goes where? Technical project management, right? So PMI, the organization that specializes in project management, 2/3 of the things in their project, in their talent triangle, aren't related to understanding how to run a project. It's the leadership pieces on how to lead it, and it's understanding business strategy. Because if you understand business strategy as a project manager, what does that do for you? It puts your project in context. If the project I'm working on is directly in line with the corporate vision, am I going to get money? Am I going to get funding? Am I going to get the answers from everybody that I need answers to? You bet. How about if it's a project that's a one-off that we sort of have to do for compliance purposes, that maybe is in an opposite direction of the corporate goals? Am I going to get a lot of funding? No. Understanding strategic and business direction also does the whole digital transformation thing I previously mentioned, but it also will give you a good idea of how your project is going to be perceived by others. Also, one other quick story here is I was teaching basically a vision class on vision, goals, that kind of thing to a bunch of IT managers. And I said to one of them, I said, so what's your department do? He was in charge of the CRM systems, like the marketing systems like Salesforce.com kind of stuff. And I said, no, what's your department do? Yeah, we upgrade the CRM system once in a while. We babysit the salespeople if they forget how to use it. And, and he actually said this. And we develop some, specialized reports for people in suits up on the 5th floor of our building. Now, doesn't that make you want to get up in the morning and go to work? Huh? I said to him, never, ever, ever refer to that's what your department does. I said, why does the president of the company have money and pay your salaries for a CRM system? And he looks at me like I'm an idiot, and he says, well, to make the salespeople more productive. Okay, and who cares if the salespeople are more productive? Why would you want that? Well, they make more money. Oh, so what your department does is it helps to generate company revenue through salesperson productivity and efficiency? He said, yeah, I guess so. I wanted to go, of course that's it. But he said, yeah. So I said, now, from whenever anyone asks you, in your company, your staff, or anybody else, what does your department do? That's what you say. You help maximize company revenue through salesperson efficiency and productivity. Now that makes you want to get up in the morning, doesn't it? He said to the people in his department, he extrapolated on it, he said, hey, the money that they're making is paying our salaries. Do you know, I ran across him 2 years later, just, serendipitously at a conference kind of thing. Came up to me, and he said, hey, you remember that? I said, oh, yeah, I remember that story. I said, and he said, I want to tell you what happened. It increased my staff's motivation and morale because it gave them purpose. He also said that his projects were more likely to get funded because who wants to upgrade CRM 3.2 upgrade? It's just not as, the business people don't get what that means. He said also, it helped him get a seat on the strategic business table. Why? Because when they wanted to increase revenue and increase productivity and put in new things for the sales force, now understanding what he did, he was sitting there with the business people. That's why this bottom box is here. Now, the things that are in the legs are business skills. Now these are all things you've seen before. Why are they things you've seen before? Because by definition, I told the things that I gave in that 1 through 6 that are on this sheet are everything. So these are different cuts of it. But business skills, coaching your team, negotiation, etc. How can you use this as a project manager? We'll see in a bit. Next one, interpersonal communication. Is influence important? Boy, anyone have dotted line resources? Anyone want to get stakeholders to do things? I mean, these are of enormous importance to you. We have a class we teach at Influence, and the first thing that we ask is and I'll just ask you this, just feel free to say it out loud or mentally think of it, what percentage of your day, on average over the course of a couple of months, do you spend influencing people to do things you want them to do? In other words, you told them to do it here, they agreed to it, and then you had to call them on the phone 18 times before they got it done? Right? You've talked to a department manager to get the names of 3 people in his or her department so you can get requirements from them, and then you had to call the manager 18 times before they finally returned your call? So maybe, classically what I'll get is somewhere between 20 and 60% of people's day, depending on the job they're in the company, in just getting people to do stuff. You know what the payoff for you on influence alone is? 30 to 60% of your day if you can influence them to do it more quickly. So you only have to call them 5 times instead of 15. You get a couple of hours of your day back. That's the power of this stuff. Next, business skills, business acumen, competitive analysis. We talked about some of the advantages to these. And again, this is what PMI says you should know. Don't listen to me, listen to them. Now, IIBA. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, let me fix that. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. PowerPoint is wonderful, isn't it? How many people looked at that and said, anyway, so the IIBA BABOK. For those on the other side, that's a BA Book of Knowledge. They have what they call their underlying soft skill competencies in their 3.0 version. I think it's in section 9. Feel free, I might be wrong on that, but you should look it up. What do they say you should know? Analytical skills, creative thinking, decision making, to your point. Just willingness to learn, problem solving, and visual thinking. Graphics, things along that line, which in itself is a whole nother animal. Next, behavioral characteristics, time management. You want a quick time management technique? Is in fact, if you look me up, if you just look, say, EricBloom, YouTube, I'm sorry, take that back, EricBloom, TEDx, you'll get 1 or 2 EricBlooms. You'll either get me or a really cool guy that looks like a rock star. If you see him, that's not me. I did a TEDx actually based on my book. Remember the words TASK, T-A-S-K. What it stands for is, if you're really in the zone, is that it's your 4 zones of productivity. You're at the top of your game. You're alert but not creative. You're sluggish, or you're basically trying to keep awake. Is what things to do when. Time management is much, much more than, do a to-do list and, put A, B, and C. That barely touches the surface of the incredible techniques, well beyond mine, that are out there too. Any to-do list people here? Raise your hands. Okay, you guys, we're going to see if you're a real to-do list person or not. You worked on a task during the day that was rather meaningful and had a good completion. You look down to cross it out. It's not on your task. It's not on your list. What do? Write it on the list and then cross it out. For those of you who aren't to-do list people, you won't understand. But I do that too. Anyway, next, business knowledge. As a business analyst, you basically are in 2 worlds. What are you doing? You're basically communicating from the business to the technical and the technical to the business. Remember, back to you, the BAs in particular. Again, I'm harping on digital transformation, but again, it is the biggest thing. You go out and look at the vendors, who are all awesome, by the way, if you haven't seen the vendors. You're going to see digital transformation, now that you've heard the term, on at least 2 or 3 of their desks, I looked. And they're all doing really cool stuff with it. But anyway, the better you understand the business, have organizational knowledge, et cetera, the methodologies on your side as well as the business, the better job you can do as a BA. Next, communication skills. The act of listening and such we've already talked about. So think of these from an importance perspective. These are the classes that not only I say you need, but now in this case, these are the underlying skills that IIBA says you need to be the best business analyst you can be. And again, it also works as a life skill. Now, the next one, interaction skills. Do you know what I love about this picture? It ties back to the teams that we're all on. There's no way the guy up in the air, there's no way that he could have gotten that high in the air without the assistance of his teammates. When we work as a team in a project, all ships rise in high tide. Do you know why else I like this picture? Because the group down here has to be very, very coordinated and in sync so that this guy doesn't come down and kill him, land on him. But think of this picture when you think of your teams. Unless you're Flipper or a killer whale, you're not getting that high out of the water. Or what's his name? He raced a shark this summer, the gold medal guy. Yeah, or I don't even think Phelps could get that high out of the water. Because if a shark was chasing me, maybe I could. No. But anyway, you get the idea of this. But look what it's facilitation, leadership and influence, teamwork, negotiation, teaching. If you're a teacher, you're a mentor. Anybody teach anything here? Anything? What do you teach? Somebody? It could be anything from yoga to anything. Future what? Oh, interesting. Now, let me ask you a question. So you're obviously a future city expert on what that would be. as you're talking to people who knew nothing about it, does that ever add to your insights and your thoughts and grow you as a professional in that area? When you teach, I'm an ex-martial artist. I did it till my mind started writing checks my body couldn't cash. But when I was going for my black belt, my instructor, the head of our school said, you know what you can do to really enhance your skills? Teach the white belt class. I go, yeah, come on, you're just looking for some free labor, right? He said, no, trust me. I said, all right, being the worldly, 20-year-old I was, I did it. And you know what? He was right. Is by teaching others, not only did they now, when they saw me in the school, it's, hi, Eric, blah, 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 and so on, but they asked me questions that I hadn't thought of in 10 years. When you throw a punch, why do you snap it at the end? Why can't you turn your arm here and then throw it? When you throw out a kick, why is the first thing you do is bring it back before you put it down? Well, you bring it back so they can't grab it, and you punch at the end because that's where all the momentum is. Someone who's really good can grab you by the collar here and basically, make you all black and blue just by going like this. But I forgot all that stuff until I taught it. So you should teach. It has enormous values. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, it's by Father something or other. And what it is it's no candle ever lost its light lighting another candle. Isn't that a cool quote? I do too. I love that quote. And next one, it's one of theirs. It doesn't particularly pertain to here, but for completion I put it, is tools and technologies. But you need to understand Office and so on. By the way, there's a new trick that you now know, put something spelt wrong and then just, move it around. But anyway, now let's talk about you. Okay, we talk about all this other stuff, but let's really bring it in now. The first thing, project manager. So let's say, all right, you're a PM. All right, what's in it for you? Okay, negotiation. You ever talk to people have to negotiate about scope creep? What happens if you can keep the scope creep out of your project? Doesn't it help it be successful? Okay, mentoring. Builds loyalty in your team, and we've already talked, thank you for that example, on how to, that if you teach, it builds loyalty and it helps you learn things better yourself. Influence. Boy, I never understood the power of influence until I studied it. That should be something that you all look into. There's a great video called The Art and Science of Persuasion. It's a YouTube by Cialdini. Well worth your while to watch. And conflict resolution, just reducing stress within your team or with your stakeholders. If you're a business analyst, questioning, right? Gaining good, and the bottom one there, active listening. We ask lots of questions. Doesn't it make sense that we listen better, the better requirements we can gather? And then the middle one, business knowledge. It increases your credibility. I was in financial services for like 25 years in IT. And for a couple of reasons related to it, I was working in brokerage systems. I got my Series 7 and my Series 24, my broker's license. And I would go in and I would talk to brokers, and they'd say, oh yeah, I'd say I'm in IT. And they'd say, all right, well, what we do here is we sell stocks and bonds. Do you know what a bond is? And I said, well, I think so. I have my Series 7 and 24. Oh, do you have your 24, which is a manager's license in that side of the house? They said, no, I have my Series 7. I said, oh, isn't that funny? I have the business credentials to be your boss. I didn't say it to be a wise guy. I said it so that they would understand I knew what they were talking about. When I worked on business systems, I have an undergrad in accounting and computer science. One of the best compliments I got early in my career is, wow, for an accountant, you know a lot about computers. Now, it sounds coy, but what does it mean? It means I had business knowledge which gave me credibility with my business users. How about if you're a Scrum Master? Anybody in a Scrum Master? Isn't that a cool name? I love that, Scrum Master. Anyone here in the Lions Club? Do you know what they call the president of the local chapter of Lions Club? King Lion. Isn't that cool? Or anyone in the Masons? The Masonic Lodge? There actually is that they're a very charitable organization. The Shriners is part of Masonry, and they're the ones who do the free burn hospitals for kids and everything. Very wonderful organization. Do you know what they call the equivalent of the president of the local chapter in your town? Ready for this? Anyone know? Worshipful master. I think when you go back to work, you should tell them that you're following the Masonic principles and you want people to start calling you worshipful master. What do you think? But anyway. But look at this. All right, meeting management. Help you with your Scrum. Fostering innovation. That's productivity and product quality. You know, the whole Agile thing, you know, the prototype becomes the product. There better be some innovation in there, right? And team building. Builds morale and motivation, which does what? It enhances the chance of your sprint cycles and your overall project going well if the people in your team are motivated. Next is product ownership. Product owner is, look at it from here, negotiation, obviously strategic thinking. Do you want a seat at the business table? You now are representing the business. Consulting, enhance the client interaction by talking to them in a way that provides them assistance. And lastly, managing change. Everything we do in building systems and managing projects, whatever it might be, is it's causing change for people in some ways. This is how it helps with your overall productivity. Maybe you want a new job. 5 steps related to all this soft skill stuff. Define what job that you want to be promoted into. Observe people in the current role. You want to be head of the PMO? Watch the PMO. Don't stalk them, just watch them. See what knowledge, leadership skills that they have. See what skills you have along with that, and then do a gap analysis. What do you have versus what do you need? And you can do it right off the sheets that I gave you earlier. So what I'd like to do now in just summing up is to say, you know, your business and technical knowledge combined with the stuff we've been talking about today, leadership, interpersonal, and business skills, perfectly position you for future professional growth and professional opportunity. So what I would say to you is, take full advantage. From there, I'd like to say thank you. Remember on your sheets, if you'd like to basically have a bunch of free stuff, join the community, that's what's shown in the upper left-hand corner of your room. From here, what I'd like to do is turn it back to Amy.